Welcome to the CI/CD UX meeting. Today is the 6th of October, and we have a very full agenda. And the first item on the agenda is an announcement, which is check out the updates to the growth and development benefit process. I think this was put across by Hyana. And next in the list is a general announcement by Nadia.
Yeah, so it's not really an announcement, more like a discussion, but
Okay.
Lately on the pipeline authoring team, well, not lately, since forever, I've been struggling a little bit with collaboration with the engineers and just like trying to find a way to effectively communicate around the design issues, get their feedback, ensure that no one feels left out from the design process and everyone can contribute their input early in the design process, starting with UX research, actually, to ensure that everyone is kind of on the same page when it comes to understanding the problems that we're solving and why. So understand that this problem it's not only the UX, it's also like product and UX and engineering. So I wanted to ask, how do you do it? How do you collaborate? Do you have any recurring sync meetings with your engineers? Do you use mostly the team meetings? And if you use asynchronous communication, which I'm sure you do, but if you have any special things that you do to communicate effectively asynchronously with your engineers, I would love to know if you have some tips or you can just share your experience.
Okay. So I had something like I had already put the reply here async, which was when you talk about syncs, I do attend the pipeline execution syncs that happen, but like 70% of the times because it's 7:30 p.m. my time. So if I end my daily, I skip that for those weeks. Then you talked about if engineers take part in UX research. So in pipeline execution, front-end engineers, they very keenly participate in research activities and interviews in general. Like they're very enthusiastic about that. So yes, they do take part, and it also happens so that towards the end of the interview sessions, they like to ask the participants some questions that that's on their mind. That's not maybe a part of the script that we have prepared, or the guide that we have prepared for the interview, just so that they get some information and be able to do their work better. And I mean, if I've just added a tip that in case you're thinking about doing that, then one really good tip is while anticipating participation from the engineers in your team, make sure you also share across the videos that we have available. I was not able to find that quickly, but I would. It's somewhere on my one-on-one agenda somewhere to like how they should be shadowing you in the interview, because some sort of confusion shouldn't happen in the course of the interview. That's important. Yeah, and that's that for me.
Yeah, I have responded on the thread, but essentially I attend most of the syncs from release. I don't usually there's not a lot of like collaboration like on the work being done. It's most like status updates or if there's blockers, but sometimes there's collaboration on in the sense of like what is being done and then like discussing the issues and talking about the engineering and all of that. And then whenever we share also either major design updates or research results, we'll also discuss that. But I would say most of the collaboration really is async and just really discussing in comments. What I try to do is share research results or even the research process as early as possible. And usually front-end developers and back-end developers are equally involved. But I don't think they haven't been much involved in interviews. We haven't been doing much interviewing as well. It's usually more on the customer side. So the PM will set up the interview and then invite either me or the researcher, but usually not engineers. Yeah, I would say from like, just to kind of summarize my thoughts, I would say the collaboration that I have with engineers is okay. It's not ideal. One thing that I notice is that for really complicated problems that are like harder to unravel in threads, I used to take longer than I should to go sync, right? To just set up a sync meeting to say, hey, can you explain me this really complicated thing that is just like there's no point in having 25 replies to discuss something when it could take 15 minutes, you know. So that's what I'm trying to do, like identify very early the problems that are blocking collaboration, like the deep ones, and then have sync meetings on that so we can move forward on the thread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm also trying to address a similar problem by having a recurring sync meeting with the front-end engineers. And for now, so we had the first one today, which was very nice. And I already learned some new things and was able to ask some questions that I probably wouldn't think about if I were to just communicate with them in an issue. And for now, we're trying to do that once a month. So it's not very frequent, but it might help us kind of not get into the situation that you described, where there's some big issues, and we will now have that space to kind of meet and discuss those big efforts. So I will let you know how that affects our collaboration, but I think it's going to be a positive improvement.
And that's with backend and front end, like design and engineering.
So that's only UX and front end. I think for backend, we may not need a recurring meeting, though it could also be open to backend engineers. So actually, I will think about it. I just noticed that we don't usually have that many things to discuss with backend. However, given we're doing a lot of work on YAML syntax and things like that, it could also be useful.
Yeah, I now that you said it, I completely forgot to mention that I do have a recurring sync with Andrew, the front end engineer in our team, and it's usually meant to, okay, I have this like big UI update, and then we break it down and discuss the details of how that could be implemented. So that's really helpful. Sometimes I feel like it would be good to have a backend engineer there. That's why I asked you, because I'm also thinking just renaming the meeting like design and engineering catch up, and then have the backend engineers as optional. Like if they want to join, that's great. Usually it wouldn't be necessary, but yeah, for some topics, it's more important for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in pipeline execution, just a small note that what we do is if we ever get stuck on any issue, Jackie, I, and the relevant engineers, we quickly organize a sync and discuss that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so let's move to the stage group topics. The first item is by Will. I'll just read it out. Starting up research that was requested by the Configure PM, Victor. The topic is around deployments, specifically for Kubernetes, serverless, and mobile applications. There's the issue linked here. And since there is some overlap with release, I've shared previous research with Victor. Daniel, is there any research on these aspects of deployments? So I think, Daniel, this is mostly relevant to you. I mean,
yeah, I was taking a look at it earlier today. I think this prompt is really broad in terms of research. We definitely have results. I would say, especially for Kubernetes, we have something, and likely for microservices, like interviews with customers, like lots of them use microservices, so we should have stuff around that. But yeah, I would say this prompt is extremely broad, and it will be hard to get like meaningful results out of this because it's targeting like way too many areas at once.
okay. All right. Any more comments around this, Nadia?
No comment. I'm
Okay.
just generally curious to see the results of this research.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
All right, then I'll move on to the next section, which is by Katie. There are about 5 topics. I'll quickly scour through them. So the first one is the past 2 weeks. Katie has started a pick of issues. Woohoo! And she's doing some problem validation on package cleanup policies. The purpose of this feature is to automate manual work that users currently have to do by deleting old packages to save storage space. And the other works that she's doing is an MVC for making deleting packages easier is to add table bulk deletion UI. Okay, that's something that we are also looking at maybe after a few milestones and pipeline execution, just making a note of that. So I think this should be a pattern in pajamas, and she has also opened an issue for this. That's very helpful. Thanks, Katie. This pattern should also apply to all package interfaces. This is a bit easier to view in Figma, and she has asked for us to chime in on this pattern. Any comments around these?
I'll need to have a
Okay.
closer look at the Figma and the issue, but I'm gonna have a look today and just comment a thing.
Yeah. So I'll just elaborate a little, like in pipeline execution, how we plan to use it. So for deleting pipeline builds. Right now, we do allow users to delete one build at a time from the pipeline details page, but we want them to be able to delete more in one go. Okay, so the next one is similar to package cleanup is automating cache clearing for the dependency. This is automating a currently manual task and saving storage space. While working on that issue, which is linked, Katie noticed that the settings for all package features live at different levels. And she finds it a bit confusing. And the reason that it was implemented this way, it doesn't seem to be based on user behavior. So they're going to do some investigation. This, I think this is going to be very relevant for Gina because she is also kind of struggling with some features which are at different level, specifically the runner registrations that happen at different levels and how they are named. So yeah, they could think around this. Then I find different levels and how they interact with each other confusing. So does Gina. I'm keen to hear about how other areas of the business handle features living at that at different levels. So yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna echo this comment from Katie. It's really tough how different settings live on and target different scopes. There is currently a big discussion going on. I can link it in the thread afterwards. It's the design pod for RBAC, but it's essentially trying to think how we should structure nest permissions, and that also reflects on settings, right? Like at which level do settings live. I'm all for like aggregating them on the same place and making them easier to find, but at the same time there might be like business logic and important reasons why they live at different levels. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when researching that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add a comment that this is not something that you would be able to unwind and figure out quickly. It's going to take a lot of time. Everyone is confused with this, so don't let this stop you from implementing MVC improvements. So it's really great to be looking into this and to slowly kind of get more context and do more investigation and clarify things, but also make sure that you identify small steps that you can still take towards improving the experience that you know makes sense. So as you gain more information, understanding of how the permissions work, yeah, identify those places that are kind of safe to make improvements.
That's a great tip. Thank you so much for this, Nadia. Yeah, I do have some points, but then I would be touching upon them anyway in my own section. So I'm just leaving, I'll just follow up on them when my turn comes. Any other comments on this? If not, we can move on to Daniel's topics.
Yes, so two quick topics. The first is I'm working on wrapping the feedbacks and run solution validation for the improvements on the environments page. You all left a bunch of comments, so thanks a lot. I'll aggregate them and see how they fit into the existing design before I close a version for usability testing this week. So thanks for that. We'll respond to your comments on the thread. If anything else comes up, feel free to leave more comments. My second point is I'm creating a handbook page to aggregate all of the past research from release. We've had situations recently where past release had relevant information that we needed, but was hard to find it and hard to like just consume it. Uh, so we pretty much like doubled a little bit of the work that was already done in the past. So this is one of the ideas to help mitigate that. Just really list everything in one place. It's hard to have a single source of truth for research because it lives in so many formats and platforms. We have Dovetail, we have the research UX repository, but we also have like epics and design proposals that are really relevant for the context of a single research. So I decided, you know what, let's just create a YAML file, kind of like we have for the jobs to be done, and just list all the research. So I've been working on that. It's kind of hard to develop pages for the handbook. Not really easy. And Valerie left one comment that is really important, that some of these are confidential, right? Both confidential issues, but also Google Docs and Dovetail links are not public. So at first I had put them as like just a really generic title without necessarily like being the real title of the document. But even that, like, really depends on your interpretation of how much you should disclaim, right? So in some
Right.
cases, some projects are super sensitive, or maybe they mention competitor names. You really shouldn't have any information about it being public. Like, I guess the link is fine because the link won't give anyone access. So I'm trying to find what is the right information to replace the title, but that still gives you context, right? Because just a URL that says this is a Google Doc about release orchestration doesn't necessarily gives you good context about it. So yeah, if you have any ideas, feel free to comment on the MR. I'll be closing up a version of this later this week, so just to have it soon up. But yeah, I'm moving towards being more cautious than not. So at the end of the day, if I don't find a good solution, the title of them would just be the URL, and that's it.
Okay. Nadia, do you want to vocalize yours?
Yeah, I just think it's a great idea, and I'm looking forward to seeing Daniel figure it all out, so then I can copy it for the pipeline authoring.
Yeah, this will be very helpful.
All of this is in one YAML file called uxresearch.yaml. So you can pretty much just copy paste the examples there, add your stage, then your groups, and then just add whatever you want. It's not the most user-friendly interface for example, researchers to add new entries. But at the same time, I think it's worth the centralization. So for release, that's what we're gonna try to do. On top of that is a more soft question on this topic. Like, the reason I created this is because I had all of these links spread all over. Like, at one point I have them in my Google Doc, but then I also wanted to be able to share them. That's why I'm putting on the handbook. But at the end of the day, this is meant to help me and other people to better absorb the research that we have on the group. Do you have any strategies or ways you found to be able to quickly look back and look at research that was done before you were here and integrate that in your current work?
I would just look for it in issues and epics in the UX research project and Dovetail. So that was my process. It wasn't very good. I think definitely having one centralized place to access all links would be super helpful.
Right. And I think what can also come handy if we can propose some sort of format for naming our insights so that it gets easier to discover, because we have a lot on Dovetail, and it might even be that some other team is conducting an interview which has insights that could be useful to me. And if we just make the whole just make the discovery easier and more convenient, that could also be very helpful.
Actually, I also have a related point. So in yesterday's UX Weekly, someone brought up the dovetail tags, shared dovetail tags. And there's actually an entry in our handbook on using tags across projects. So I had this, and the idea is to actually have some kind of library of shared tags like across the board, across all stage groups. But I imagine that creating something like that would be quite difficult, not impossible, but difficult. But maybe we could start with creating a library of shared tags for Verify that would allow us to connect insights to those tags. And not all tags have to be shared, but like some tags. So we could at least locate insights related to like a specific topic, like runner or I don't know, pipelines.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit
I
more
actually
specific
did
than that.
that. I'll share. So I did add a section to the handbook last year sometime. Okay, where are we on the agenda? Sorry, I'll just add it here. So this is the link where I actually created a video. I created a set of tags for us to use, but it has been a long time. And I realized that maintaining those is also tedious because there's so much of work going on, so much of responsibility that we generally have. It sometimes get very difficult to maintain. But if we do take that responsibility seriously, not seriously, I mean, if we could make a little time for it, and if we think that should be given some priority, then maybe we can revive that.
Yeah, I think we could start with just a very small set. You know, we don't have to create a shared text for everything, but kind of pilot it with a very small set and agree that we're going to use these tags across projects. If you need other tags, you can create more. But if you need to use this tag, don't create it in your project, but reuse it from the extension.
Yeah. I mean, making this applicable to the whole UX group could be difficult, but what we can do is, for as a smaller step, we can do this among ourselves, like
Yeah.
within the CI/CD UX team, we can start doing it. Okay, that's a great idea.
I think for all the research that we do, like things will come up like runner, deployments, environments, like creating pipeline. So if we could find these snippets more easily within each other's research, it would be really helpful.
All right, then now we'll move to Nadia's topics.
Okay, so I've already shared this issue several times probably. So if you already checked it out and know all about it, apologies for repeating it all over again, but I think it's an important one. So in the CI/CD section, some of the pages don't always clearly communicate their current state. So this has to do a lot with the empty states for pages like pipelines, pipeline editor, schedules, and so on. So all of those pages in the CI/CD navigation. So I created this issue, the CI/CD pages states audit, where Vitika and I collaborated, and also I know that Gina also commented, but basically we're trying to document all of the different states for the different pages within the CI/CD section, and we're documenting the current state and just leaving some comments on whether this is the correct way to address that state. Are there any missing states? Do we need to communicate some information that is currently missing to improve the user experience? So at this stage, if you haven't had a look at this audit issue, just have a look and see if you can add any more context around your areas of the product and see if anything is missing. Because I think the next step will be to first identify some low-hanging fruit improvements, some MVC improvements to like close the most obvious gaps in the experience. I've already proposed a couple MVC issues for the pipeline editor page, for example, to address what happens when auto DevOps is enabled. Right now, we don't communicate it in any way in the pipeline editor, but we definitely should, because Auto DevOps is your pipeline configuration. If it's enabled, then that's the configuration that your project is running. So an MVC way to address this could be to show an alert that says, hey, Auto DevOps is enabled. So at least someone who wants to set up CI/CD configuration for that project is aware that if they create a CI/CD config, it will override Auto DevOps, which could be unexpected behavior if they don't know that Auto DevOps is enabled. So some small things like that, and if there are some inconsistencies or some gaps in how your product area addresses different states, and specifically the empty states, see if you can identify those and document and propose some MVC improvements. I realized that addressing this more holistically would require like a separate design effort to look at all of these different pages and really ensure that the experience is really smooth. So I'm trying to schedule a design issue for this for the next iteration, but I don't know if I will be able to prioritize it. But for now, the idea is to at least document it so we're all aware of what's going on and see if we can propose some MVC improvements. So yeah, just have a look at the issue and let me know if it's all good. You think you've added your comments, just let me know, because I will be closing out the audit issue once everyone has had a chance to have a look at it.
Sure. Actually, this audit issue that you created, plus the one that was created by Foundations, it really helped us create a bunch of issues in pipeline execution and tackle them like quickly, because we wanted at least to be something to be put there. Like you said, it could just be an alert for an MVC. So we tried doing that. These are the two ones that I remember from top of my mind, but there were a couple of more issues. And this exercise, it really helped us realize like the kind of experience that we are providing to users, which don't seem to be like well packaged or a complete experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I think it's really hard to have this ideal map of what the experience should look like, and then have the state of the application map that precisely. So I think really identifying the weak spots and then doing MVCs is really the way, because it would be impossible to just rethink the whole thing to make sure all the states make sense at once, because that is literally how the entire application works. So good work.
I think we're good to move on next to your point, Vitika.
So the next section is, are we through with all the topics, Nadia?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so a couple of things that I wanted to make a mention of is the first thing that I don't have a lot to share today. I'm still struggling to catch up with my to-dos. But something that I did right before leaving for the break was I did a quick documentation of all the UI operations related to CI, and it started to become clear to me how the permissions and the access, how does it cascade down? And now it is much easier for me to determine who would be the audience for any upcoming change. So it happens so that in one of the issues we were discussing that we need to show a banner here, but the banner should be only shown to the people who could run the pipeline in this case. And how do we figure out that? It was very convenient for me to just open the sheet, see that where does this permission start to stop, like at what level do we stop the access to that particular page? So mentioning that this role plus we should be showing this banner to. Those kind of things have become very easy to do after this documentation is in place. So it's there. And I tried to cover most actions which are related to pipeline authoring, runner, but I'm pretty sure that I might have missed out on a bunch of things. So I left a note for Nadia, Gina, or whoever wants to contribute to that, and in whichever way you want to use that sheet. So that was one.
This is great. Thank you so much for working on this. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. I'm also super behind on my issue things, but I'll have a look and comment any pipeline authoring related details.
Great. All right. And the next thing is explore limitations of current table components. So this is an issue where Daniel and I are collaborating after realizing a bunch of constraints and challenges that we faced in our respective stage groups related to table and list views. So in this epic, you would find all the steps that we have listed for what we are going to do next. So we caught up like yesterday and started to think about how we would be achieving, like what methodologies or what ways we would be using to work on our next step, which is to collect feedback from the designers in different stage groups. So we have planned that we would prepare an easy to share template so other designers could also voice their concerns they're facing with tables and list views. And then based on that, we are going to follow up on the other steps which are listed in the epic. Yeah, if you have any feedback or any suggestion regarding how we can improve our process, please leave a comment on the issue. We would love to collaborate with everybody else who's interested on this.
I know that the plan team, wasn't the plan team, there was a similar effort for merge requests where they used Figma to gather feedback from the rest of the product designers. So you may want to follow up with them to see if they can give you some tips, because it was like a big effort and I think it was quite successful. They were able to efficiently gather lots of feedback. I think Pedro was leading this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thanks for the note. We'll reach out to them.
Yep. And that's all from my side. Gina did not get a chance yet to put her topics down. And in the more cool stuff section, I wanted to mention that I applied for the Figma Schema conference because I want to learn more about the best practices related to managing and contributing to design systems. So that's mostly what I'll be doing this Focus Friday. And this new website for Stripe Press was, I think, released yesterday, if I'm not wrong. And this time their design is amazing, which it mostly is. But the titles which are listed here, they are so good. They're really good.
I usually don't like these sites with like these fancy scroll animations, but this is really amazing. Stripe is really good at this.
It's so difficult for me because most of the books are not available in India, and I'm like,
Yeah, looks
okay.
cool. I saw it briefly yesterday.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. All right. Anything else you want to talk about? We do have some time. All right, then we'll get our 20 minutes back. All right. Have a good day, both of you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for hosting this,
bye.
Vitika.
Bye, Nadia.
Bye-bye.